Welcome back to Strides to Solutions. I'm Esther Adams, and today we're examining how the earliest experiences in a horse's life determine their ability to form deep, trusting relationships with humans years later. The research reveals patterns that challenge some common practices in horse management and offer profound insights into how trust develops in any relationship. What we're discovering is that the foundation for lifelong attachment patterns is laid much earlier than most people realize. The way a foal is handled in its first days, weeks, and months creates neurological and emotional patterns that persist well into adulthood, affecting not just behavior but the fundamental capacity for trust and connection. The research paints a sobering picture of how early disruption affects long term relationship capacity. Foals subjected to intensive handling and maternal separation immediately after birth show what researchers call insecure attachment to their mothers, increased social withdrawal, and heightened aggression toward peers. These effects don't fade with time, they persist into adolescence and likely beyond. This isn't just about behavioral problems, it's about fundamental changes in how the developing brain learns to process relationships, trust, and safety. Early trauma creates lasting alterations in stress response systems, social cognition, and the capacity to form secure bonds with others. But the research also reveals something hopeful. Moderate, consistent early handling during critical developmental periods enhances learning ability, reduces emotional reactivity, and creates horses that are easier to manage and more capable of forming trusting relationships with individual handlers. The key word here is moderate. The research shows that intermediate levels of early handling produce the best outcomes. Too little handling leaves foals unprepared for human interaction, but too much, especially if it's forced or stressful, can actually increase emotional reactivity and impair social development. This finding has profound implications for how we think about early intervention in any developmental context. The assumption that more handling, more stimulation, more early intervention is always better appears to be fundamentally flawed. Instead, what emerges is a more nuanced picture where timing, quality, and intensity of early experiences all matter tremendously. The developing nervous system seems to benefit from predictable, manageable challenges that build confidence without overwhelming coping capacity. The research on socialization reveals another crucial factor. Early social experiences with both humans and other horses shape lifelong patterns of social competence and emotional regulation. Horses raised in socially enriched environments, with opportunities for normal peer interaction, play, and social learning, show fewer abnormal behaviors, more relaxed attitudes, and better overall welfare outcomes. Social isolation during critical developmental periods, conversely, creates lasting deficits in social skills and emotional regulation. These horses struggle not just with peer relationships, but with human relationships as well, suggesting that early social learning provides fundamental skills for all types of relationships. This research challenges the common practice of separating young horses from their peers for intensive training or handling. While individual attention is important, it appears that social learning with other horses provides irreplaceable developmental benefits that affect lifelong relationship capacity. The weaning research adds another layer of complexity. The way young horses are separated from their mothers and transition to independence significantly affects their later ability to form secure attachments. Abrupt, stressful weaning creates lasting effects on stress, reactivity, and social confidence. Gradual, carefully managed weaning that minimizes stress and maintains some social stability produces horses that are better able to form trusting relationships with human caregivers later in life. This suggests that how we manage major transitions during development affects fundamental patterns of trust and attachment. But here's where the research becomes particularly relevant to human relationships. The effects of early handling and socialization aren't just about the specific techniques used, they're about the quality of emotional attunement and responsiveness that the young horse experiences. Early handlers who are sensitive to the foal's signals, who respond appropriately to signs of stress or comfort, who provide predictable positive interactions, create horses that are better able to trust and connect with humans throughout their lives. Early handlers who are insensitive, inconsistent, or who ignore the foal's communication create horses that struggle with trust and attachment, even when later handlers are skilled and caring. The early experiences create templates for how relationships work that are difficult to change. This pattern mirrors what we know about human attachment development. The quality of early caregiving creates internal working models, unconscious templates, for how relationships function, how trustworthy others are, and how deserving we are of care and attention. The research on handler consistency during early development reveals another crucial finding. Horses that experience multiple handlers or frequent changes in primary caregivers during critical periods show lasting effects on their ability to form secure attachments. These horses are more reluctant in novel situations, slower to trust new caregivers, and more likely to show stress responses even in routine interactions. They seem to have learned that relationships are unreliable and that it's safer to maintain emotional distance. Conversely, horses that experience consistent, stable relationships with primary caregivers during early development are more confident, more trusting, and better able to form new attachments throughout their lives. This finding has obvious implications for human development as well. The importance of consistent, stable caregiving during early childhood is well established in human research, but the horse research provides additional perspective on how early instability affects lifelong relationship patterns. What's particularly striking is how long these early effects persist. The research shows that horses can carry the effects of early handling experiences well into adulthood. A few weeks or months of early experience can influence behavior and relationship capacity for years or even decades. This suggests that early intervention and prevention might be far more important than later remediation. Investing in positive early experiences may be more effective than trying to repair damage from negative early experiences later, but the research also reveals some nuances about recovery and resilience. While early negative experiences create lasting effects, they don't appear to completely prevent the formation of positive relationships later in life. Horses with difficult early histories can still form attachments to caring handlers, though it may take longer and require more patience and skill. This suggests that while early experiences are crucial, they're not entirely deterministic. Later positive experiences can provide some corrective effect, though they may not completely erase the influence of early trauma. The research on optimal early handling practices offers some specific insights about what creates the best outcomes. Moderate, consistent handling that respects the foal's developmental needs and communication appears to be most beneficial. This means handling that is frequent enough to create familiarity with humans, but not so intensive that it overwhelms the developing nervous system. It means handling that is responsive to the foal's signals rather than following a rigid protocol, regardless of the individual animal's responses. Most importantly, it means handling that occurs within the context of stable social relationships, rather than being provided by constantly changing caregivers. These principles, moderation, consistency, responsiveness, and stability, seem to apply across species and developmental contexts. They offer guidance not just for horse management, but for any situation where we're trying to support healthy development and attachment capacity. The research also highlights some concerning common practices that may inadvertently impair attachment development. Intensive early handling programs that focus more on domination or control than on building positive relationships may create compliance without creating genuine trust or attachment capacity. Similarly, management practices that frequently change handlers or that prioritize efficiency over relationship stability may be undermining the very bonds they're supposed to create. This doesn't mean that all early handling is problematic, but it suggests that we need to evaluate these practices not just for their immediate effects on behavior, but for their long term effects on relationship capacity and emotional development. The implications extend beyond individual horse human relationships. These findings suggest that how we structure care systems, educational environments, and support services during critical developmental periods has lasting effects on people's capacity for trust, connection, and emotional regulation throughout their lives. For parents, these findings emphasize the importance of consistent, responsive caregiving during early childhood. For educators and childcare providers, they highlight the value of stable relationships and the potential harm of frequent transitions between caregivers. For therapists and social workers, they suggest that understanding early attachment history may be crucial for designing effective interventions and that building trust may require different approaches for people with different early experiences. But perhaps most importantly, this research reminds us that development happens in relationship. The quality of early relationships doesn't just affect behavior, it shapes fundamental capacities for trust, emotional regulation, and social connection that influence every subsequent relationship. The horses that received sensitive, consistent early care didn't just learn specific behaviors, they developed a fundamental sense that relationships can be safe, that others can be trusted, and that connection is rewarding rather than threatening. The horses that experienced early trauma or instability didn't just develop problematic behaviors, they developed a fundamental wariness about relationships, a default assumption that others might be dangerous or unreliable. These patterns, once established, influence how individuals approach new relationships throughout their lives. They affect not just what people do in relationships, but how they perceive and interpret relationship experiences. Understanding these patterns can help us be more patient and skillful in building trust with people who may have learned early that relationships are dangerous or unreliable. It can help us recognize that someone's wariness or reluctance may not be about us personally, but about their learned expectations from early experience. It can also help us understand why some people seem to trust easily and form connections readily, while others struggle with intimacy and attachment despite wanting close relationships. The research suggests that building trust with someone who has a history of early relationship trauma requires particular patience, consistency, and skill. It may take longer to establish security, and it may require more explicit attention to demonstrating reliability and safety. But it also suggests that this investment in patient, consistent relationship building can have profound effects. Even individuals with difficult early histories can learn to trust and form secure attachments when they encounter truly reliable, caring relationships. This gives me hope about the potential for healing and growth throughout life. While early experiences are crucial, they don't have to be destiny. Later relationships can provide corrective experiences that help people develop greater capacity for trust and connection. This has been Strides to Solutions. I'm Esther Adams, and thank you for joining me today.